because the boss man is here. Mr. Chris Geo is in the house. I'm absolutely made up. I told you all out there something would have come up. It's all good, though. We've rectified that. And Chris, you're with us, brother. How you doing, man?
Kev, how are you doing, man? First, I want to apologize to you and to the audience as well. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking the show that you wanted us on at 3, and we ran and had lunch and rushed back over here before 3 o'clock, and I realized, nope, you wanted us on during the first hour. So my sincerest apologies, completely my fault, or I got caught up in a time loop, one or the other. But I wanted to say thank you so much for having us on.
No, I think the time loop definitely sounds better, Chris. I like that. But no, I'm just glad to have you here, brother. And at the top of the show, I was telling people about AyaLife. And of course, for anyone out there, you can visit AyaLife.com, because this is a way that people get to kill two birds with one stone, right, Chris? Because not only are they helping to support all of us here at TFR, to keep the lights burning, to keep the shows running, but also they're going to be harnessing the magical medicinal power of CBD oil, right?
Yeah, it's phenomenal, Kev, because AyaLife has helped so many people out there. The website is AyaLife.com. And we recently had David J. Brown on the broadcast just a couple of days ago. And he was talking about how the shaman down in South America, they actually work with ayahuasca and other plants as well. And when I told him we had combined the ayahuasca vine with the hemp plant, he said, "Oh my God, that's remarkable. That's what the shaman are doing down there as well, using ayahuasca with several different things." Now, I think it's important to understand what ayahuasca is, first of all. There are two components to the ayahuasca tea itself, and that is the ayahuasca vine, or bee cappy, and there is the chacruna. The chacruna, they consider to be the helper plant, and this has the DMT in it. This causes the visions and the psychoactive effect. Obviously, we don't include that in AyaLife. But the bee cappy, the ayahuasca vine, is considered to be the healer. We took the healer plant and mixed it with the hemp plant, and the results have been phenomenal. We received 2 comments just recently, back to back, about elderly people. The first one was a comment from somebody that said, "I just want to thank you for giving my grandmother new life again. She was 85 years old. She was starting to die down, or not die down, decline. Yeah, she didn't use the word die down, but wind down. That's what I meant to say. So she's winding down, and I didn't know what to do, so I gave her some of the AyaLife. She's out gardening. She's out really enjoying life. She's out doing all of that." We got another comment right back to back with that, and this person said, "I've been giving my grandmother AyaLife. She is dying. She literally, physically is dying, because she's on the last couple of weeks, and she was in horrendous pain, and she couldn't talk. So and she couldn't eat either. So he started giving her the AyaLife just through her lips. She woke up. She started to she says she was pain free, and she started to talk to her family for the remainder of the time that she's here. Now she's still dying, obviously, but it gave both of those families a new chance to be with their grandparents, to be with their loved ones. And especially the second comment that we received, I was like, "Oh my God, this is truly incredible," that it gave the grandmother the ability to be able to speak her last words and enjoy her time instead of just being there on the couch. We received another email recently from somebody that said that they had Parkinson's. Her husband had Parkinson's, actually. It was the wife that wrote. And for the first time, the husband has been able to sleep through the entire night. We received another email saying that it's helped with the tennis elbow. Me personally, I want to share my journey, because this is something that I haven't shared with anybody before. But I started taking AyaLife about 3 months ago religiously. Now, the only reason that I didn't up to that point was because I'm like notorious for not taking stuff regularly. Like, I can't even, if the doctor gives me antibiotics, I'm lucky to finish half the bottle. Like, I do not take things religiously. Well, once I started taking AyaLife religiously for 2 weeks, that's all it took. I mean, less than 2 weeks. I went to the gym immediately, and I signed up with personal training. I started 3 days a week. It's given me so much energy. Today, I went to the gym and I burned almost 2,100 calories, 2,092 calories, and I still have more energy in me. I was deadlifting for the first time. I mean, this is how fast the progress is. I guess let me back up for a second and say that my trainer, she is a world-class Spartan runner. Now, the Spartan run is like an 8-kilometer obstacle course. It's like hardcore military-style obstacles. And in order to get first place, you have to be a complete badass. I mean, she's amazing. And she's hardcore. And so I'm training with her, and she's like, oh my God, you're moving so quickly through all this. This is incredible. I strap on a 30-pound vest on me before I go hiking, and I'll hike for 2 miles and then do my workout. And then after that, like, here, let me just tell you what I did on Friday. Friday, I did 3 miles, actually, hiking with a 30-pound pack. Then I did about 40 reps of deadlifts, progressing in weight, going up throughout each cycle. I did bench press. I moved this tank about 1/8 of a mile. A tank that weighs like 200 pounds, just kind of pushing it, kind of marching back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then I did push-ups, sit-ups, etc., etc. Then after that was done, then she asked me if I can come with her to film her while she's doing her training, because she needed somebody to actually film her. So she's training on this hill that's about a mile up, and she's pulling this tire on this harness, and she's pulling it up this hill, and I'm running up the hill trying to catch up with her because she got there first. So now I'm running up the hill right after this workout, and I meet up with her about halfway, and I'm walking up, and I'm running backwards while I'm filming her. So then she does her thing, which is like 3 or 4 laps back and forth up and down this hill without the tire this time. She said the tire is just her warm up. This is how badass she is. And so I'm walking up and down the hill again. So I put in about 5 miles right there, plus that entire workout. And then I was ready for more afterwards. And then I realized during one of the deadlifts, I twisted my knee just a little bit. I picked it up, and I was doing the wrong form, and I put too much pressure on my right knee, and my right knee started to hurt. So Nick Zervos, who was one of the people that wrote and said that he alleviated his stuff through tennis elbow, he said, dude, you need to triple up on the AyaLife. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. I'll do that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I tripled up on the AyaLife, 3 doses. And Monday, I was back in the gym going hardcore again. And she's like, how's the knee? And I'm like, I'm taking AyaLife. I mean, what can I say? Today, she was worried that the AyaLife would make her test positive for THC, and I assured her we don't put it there. It's 100% THC free. There's no THC in it. She talked to her trainer. They checked out the product. Her trainer checked out the product. She checked, and her trainer is like somebody that's like way up in the Spartan racing kind of deal. I don't know the technical terms behind it, but they're like one of the judges and the regulators, and they gave the go ahead. You can go ahead and start using AyaLife because AyaLife is really THC free. So now my trainer is starting to use AyaLife, not only for the energy boost, but for the anti-inflammatory properties of it. She's got some problems in the back of her leg, and she's going to let me know here in a few days if that helps. But I can tell you, me personally, I have not ever in my life expected to go this hardcore as I'm going. I mean, I am keeping up with a world-class Spartan runner, and she's got me set to do my first Spartan run in October, which is like hardcore military obstacle type stuff. So just the change that it's made, let me just say this, just the change that it's made in my life, Kev, has been absolutely phenomenal. And I never expected that it was going to work this well for so many people. I mean, even when we first released it, I was like, I don't know what we're going to expect from this. It worked for Cherie's chronic pain and all this, but we're getting email after email. People are posting it. Like, we don't even have to market it because people are taking it upon themselves to just post their own experiences on Facebook because it's working so well for them.
There was another, I just want to step in here and say we had another end of life story come in last week. One of our listeners who had purchased AyaLife, the pet formula for their dog, they had ordered it because their dog was diagnosed with cancer, and it was it's kind of a hopeless case though, because the cancer had become really advanced at that point. And what happened was they started treating with the AyaLife last week, and she says that although the AyaLife didn't have the chance, I mean, there wasn't enough time for it to actually cure the cancer, but they could tell that the dog was much more comfortable, much more present in its last days
Now we're
than
just
it would be.
just
would
a
have been.
disclaimer: we can't make any claims about it,
No.
just because of FDA regulations. But we can tell you what people are reporting,
Right.
and people are reporting. I mean,
Amazing
it's not
effects
even
from
short
it.
of miracles. I mean, I feel weird about saying people are reporting miracles, but people are reporting miracles.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, Chris, this is the same kind of feeling I get when I talk about Extendivite with Don Wiskin as well. The product and the people taking it, they're the ones that are really the ones that are telling everybody out there exactly how good this is. And we spoke before about, plants that are indigenous to the planet, things like that. And I've been listening to Graham Hancock lately, and he's talking about his first ayahuasca experience, and he was getting back into the fact that this vine, the ayahuasca vine, and the other plant that they mix it with. I mean, out of over 100,000 species, these shaman were able to come up with this, and they say it was because of the plants actually telling them. So, the benefits when you start to go down this road of using natural kind of products, and in particular CBD, I'm yet to really come across any kind of bad testimonial out there when it comes to really any of the CBDs. But your one in particular, and this is what I like about AyaLife, and I've said to you before, you take the one in the UK, and it's honestly like somebody's making you drink lemon juice or something like that. You screw up a horrible face. A lot of people just spit it out. But this is actually not only just pleasant, I enjoy the taste of it. So you've absolutely knocked it off here, guys.
Well, thank you, Kev. The taste was a really big thing for me because, with me personally, I'm already the type of person that doesn't take things religiously. I just can't do it or regularly. And then the taste of CBD oil was just horrible. I mean, I was looking at several different ones, first and foremost, before we got the idea, hey, let's do this. And the recipe actually came from the hyperspace realm, from an ayahuasca experience. And it was like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Here's the exact schematics, and this is what's going to help not only to help people alleviate their ailments, but also raise their vibration, raise their frequency. People are saying they're taking it and they're having more lucid dreams, more vivid dreams, dreams that are more symbolic and meaningful just from taking just AyaLife. So the ayahuasca experience is very interesting, and obviously, I've been on the ayahuasca journey for 10 years now, and I've been able to go deep inside and really break down a lot of my traumas and emotions and things like that. And this is what we urge people to do. And when they do that, when they take these steps and start working with ayahuasca, for example, they'll disappear from our YouTube chat. They'll disappear from TFR. They'll disappear from listening to Beyond the Veil for about 3 or 4 months. And I think to myself, well, did we say something? Did we offend somebody? Oh, I wonder what happened to that person. Then they hop back in and they say, hey, oh my God, I started becoming my own shaman. I started making my own ayahuasca. I started really exploring, my own consciousness and this and that. And my life has just totally changed. And, we're taking that principle and applying it here in AyaLife. And I'm pretty convinced that it's not just the chemical makeup of AyaLife. It's the energy that goes into it. It's the intention. It's the fact that it's just, I don't know. It's blessed. It's blessed by the goddess. It really is. That's the only way that I can describe it. It's blessed by the goddess, ordained by the goddess. That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, there's almost some kind of synergy going on here. And the fact that you retrieved this kind of recipe from the Aya realm, I think that's really key to this as well, because that gets back into what I was saying with Hancock and the ancient shamans who talk about, how the plants themselves, they contain the knowledge, how they impart the knowledge to people over time. And, shamans of the past, all the way up to the Chris and Cherie Geos of today. And it was interesting you said there, you notice people, when they go down this road, they'll maybe drop off the radar for a couple of months, because I was talking about in opening how really I've had a front row seat to watching Chris and Cherie Geo's awakening, their kind of professional career on the radio, and the evolution that not only you guys have gone through, but looking at my own kind of path as well. It's almost as if when we enter this, and I hate using this term, guys, but the truth community, it's almost as if we're on this kind of production line. And at the start, you go absolutely all in on all of the information you start to come across. You go through that phase of shouting at people, trying to wake people up. Then you step back a little bit and you start to really try to employ more logic. Take a look at things you've looked at in the past. Start to realize things aren't exactly how even we had imagined them. But you've got to the stage now where truly it's like an evolution. And I don't say that lightly, but you've really gone to literally a different level. You know, you talk about other dimensions, but I've watched this for years now, and you guys have gone, pardon the pun, beyond the veil.
That is true,
We
Kev.
have,
It has
yeah.
been one hell of a journey, and you know, I'm kind of working on my trainer a little bit, and she's lacking a little bit in the spiritual realm, in the same way that I'm lacking in the physical realm, and we're kind of meeting kind of together and kind of pulling each other into a place of balance. And one of the things that that I was telling her as I was helping her work out, do her own workout, I was telling her, look, you know, we are divine beings. We are. This is just an experience. It's just a body computer, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as I told her that, I said, remember your wings, remember your wings. And she started pushing even harder. And it's like this fire came into her, and she started moving by just that realization that this is all just kind of a digital simulation kind of reality that we're living in, and we have complete and total control over it. And the same with her. You know, I was about to give up. My body was about to give out. She said a couple of things, and boom, lit that fire in me again, just to kind of remind me, hey, we're just playing a game. And this is what the ayahuasca experience really has done. I mean, it's given me personally, and a lot of people around us, the confidence to navigate through this matrix in what I call God mode, or understanding our own divinity. I mean, here you have a guy that's severely overweight. You know, I have been severely overweight. I go to the doctor and I manifest the reality of blood work being 100% healthy. And it comes back, and the doctor's scratching their heads going, what the hell's going on here? Why is your blood work 100% healthy? I don't get it. And I'm like, well, I do lots of ayahuasca. I do AyaLife. I do this. I do that, et cetera, et cetera. And then I go to the gym, and I'm working out and keeping up with people that have been there for years and years and years. And it's like, first of all, it starts in the mind, then it manifests within the body itself. And the two working together, as you said earlier, Kev, the synergy, it really brings everything together. But what it was that one small change that I made every single morning. Instead of getting up and having a cup of coffee, I get up and I have AyaLife first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Then it kind of spreads from there. But the understanding wasn't until going into the ayahuasca realm and understanding who we are as beings. I don't know how deep you want to get into the nature of reality, Kev, but this is my absolute favorite topic.
We definitely want to go there. But just before we go there, Chris, I know Jimmy's got something to add on the AyaLife or ayahuasca here. Jimmy, all you, man.
Yeah, no, I am the same as Kev. You guys, I've been, an admirer of your show all the way back to American Freedom Radio days. And so I've gone along.
Those are the old days.
Uh-huh.
You've seen the journey then. You've seen the progression.
And I've gone along with you guys. I mean, all the realizations that you came to in your show when I was a listener, I came to as well. And, so I've kind of gone along with you. I think what's really super cool about what you guys have done with AyaLife is the fact that there's subtle energy that we resonate with these plant medicines. And it was interesting because the other day Kev was talking about people being burned at the stake for putting these kind of medicines together in antiquity, and being called a witch. And but herbal medicine and the vibration of the medicine, and particularly ayahuasca, when you begin, I know you guys have taken deep journeys, and when you begin to resonate with that subtle energy that's apparent everywhere and understand how energy is flowing, and I think that's what's really important about AyaLife is there's this particular energetic that comes along with the mixture that you've put together, and somehow you've generated some type of healing energy with your mixture, Chris and Cherie. So
Well, thank you
I hope
for the.
everybody jumps. Yeah, I hope everybody jumps over to AyaLife.com and check it out.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Jimmy. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And this is something I really want to get across to people as well. Don't wait until you do have an illness or anything like that.
Right.
You might be perfectly healthy right now. And I would encourage you more then to take the AyaLife, because I think you're going to get the full benefit, Cherie, of this almost frequency synchronization that I'm thinking is taking place here. Like you talk about this raising people's frequency. And I definitely agree there's something to that. So for even the healthiest people out there, I mean, this is something they should be trying, right, Cherie?
Oh, definitely. This is something that I've been implementing slowly over the last year. Basically, ever since we got back from Egypt, I started using it religiously twice a day, dropper full twice a day, once in the morning, once at night before I go to bed. And as long as I'm using it religiously, I've noticed, the inflammation, the pain, the overall suffering, because, I have a chronic pain illness, an illness that irrefutably causes chronic pain, and it's gotten so much better. I'm eating much healthier. I just feel all around a lot more balanced out in the last year than I have been throughout the last 10 years. So absolutely. I mean, it's something that you want to do as a daily regimen. And I mean, before anything even happens, and that way, we're not making any claims, but I can tell you from firsthand experience that I have never been healthier.
Well, there is a lot of energy that went into it, Kev. I
Mhm.
mean, when we launched it, first of all, it was a year in development because we wanted to get the taste right. We wanted to get everything just right.
Perfect. Yeah.
When we released it, we went to Egypt, and what we did is we bought one large crystal and we broke them up into hundreds and hundreds of little pieces. And then we took pieces of those crystals and we dropped them in several of the ancient sites in Egypt. We've got one in the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid, which has been closed off to the public for about 20 years now. And we have footage of the subterranean chamber on our YouTube channel. We dropped it in the Temple of Hatshepsut. We dropped it in the Nile River. We dropped it in the Temple of Isis in the Holy of Holies. We dropped them inside of the walls of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. I mean, all of these high-powered energetic sites are all tuned into the AyaLife crystals, is what we call them. And we've been sending out crystals to everybody that orders AyaLife. It's not something that we advertise because it's not, that's not, what we want people to buy AyaLife for. We want them to buy it for the healing benefits of it, but they also get a crystal that's energetically connected. And we have created an energy network, not just with those sites, but with everybody that has one of those crystals. And Lucky got it the other day, and she's like, oh my God, she's like, I didn't even look at the crystal. I just stuck it in my pocket, and it hasn't come out of my pocket since. It's so powerful. And it's phenomenal. So yeah, there is an energy thing going on here for sure. And it's remarkable, man. I mean, I wish I was a businessman. I really do, because we could get it out to so many more people. But that's not what this is about. This is about energetic healing. It's about getting it out to people that need it. And it's about, it's a work of love. It's a work of passion. It's AyaLife.
And that's the vibration. That's the vibration of it too, right? That's why people find it and resonate with it, Chris, is because it is from the heart, and because you guys did mix it with love. Sorry about that, Kev. I didn't mean to. Sorry about that.
Coming up from the break, I just want to urge people, really head on over there, check that out, because like Chris is saying there, this is so much more than just a CBD product. I was talking about how Graham Hancock and Chris and Cherie and so many other people who work with ayahuasca, they will tell you that these plants, there's almost like a hive mind all around us. And I'm wondering if this is going to plug us back into that natural network that's always existed on this planet. Something that seems to be re-emerging at a time when we're so determined to build artificial hive minds. That's where we're going to pick it up after the break, because the nature of reality, just what is reality? What is this life all about? And of course, there's some of us think we might even be living in a simulation, myself included. And could that simulation be running on the D wave? Well, I'll be asking Chris and Cherie about this after the break. Don't go anywhere. Folks. We're going to be right back. Check out AyaLife.com. There we go, folks. There we go. Quick half hour, see?
Awesome. We're still broadcasting
Time flies on KBS.
We're broadcasting
Yes,
on
it
our
does.
YouTube channel, so just a heads
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Oh,
How you
I think
guys-
I lowered the volume. Oh, yeah, we're broadcasting on our YouTube channel, so just a heads up.
Awesome.
Yeah, so don't say anything too
No,
much.
I wouldn't say anything.
Don't say anything you
How
wouldn't
are
say.
How you doing, Cherie? Are you healing up?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I have a doctor's appointment coming up in about an hour, so I'm going to need to go here in about half an hour.
Yeah, and
but-
again, man, I'm sorry, Kev. I thought it was 3 to 5, and Cherie was like, "Hey, I got a doctor's appointment at 4:30." That's why I was like, "Cherie's got to go at 4, but I can stay till 5." Dude, it was just totally my fault.
You never have to apologize for anything, man, ever. Honestly, I'm just made up. He's made it at all, honestly. This is like I think of people out there listening right now, the way me and Jimmy used to listen back in the day. So, no, this is awesome, Chris.
Awesome.
Cherie, thank you. Yeah.
We
And
love you
yeah,
guys.
The
since I've
J,
got
the
deep
I,
chat-
the M, the M, the I, the Y. It's Jimmy. You remember that old song? I think I sent it to you.
I was, I wanted to find it again. I know you sent it to me, and I couldn't find it.
I'll send you another
Send-
link.
Yeah, send it again.
How's the YouTube been going, guys? You enjoying the live streaming still?
Everything's good, man.
Yeah,
Everything's
everything's
good.
really
We've been,
good.
that's the thing. Okay, this is the downside of AyaLife, is that I have been pumped up with so much energy that I have not want to be in front of the computer. And I've got like 10 things that I need to do. There are 2 shows that want to come on TFR, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it because I've been spending all my time at the gym. I've been like, dude, I'll come back from the gym after working like 4 hours, and then I'll take an hour break, and then I'm like, sure, I'm going to go for a run real quick.
Uh-huh.
I've been watching your Facebook posts. See, in the military, we call what you're going through beast mode. Dude, you're absolutely hammering that gym, man.
It becomes
I know, I saw
addictive,
that.
man. I mean, it's like you get this dopamine rush when you're working out, and you just get hooked to it. And I'm like, I was on the ground the other day. The trainer had me literally on the ground because she'd worn me out so bad. And I just looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, this is almost the best drug I've ever done in my life." And she was just chuckling like, "Which one's the best?" And I was like, "Molly, 100%." But that's neither here nor there.
I agree with you for what it's worth. Absolutely.
I've been feeling the same way about computers lately. I've been feeling like it's a big world, and I don't want to be sitting in front of my little window here into the world. I want to actually go in the world and be in it more.
Yeah, same here, dude. That's why I unplug during the days,
Yeah.
Man, I've
There's
been,
my twin.
Some the world.
yep.
Do y'all see that?
No, I'm not sending video back
Oh,
to them.
okay.
Here we go, guys.
Wow.
Bring back. Here we go.
Radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
On the verge of an all-out economic collapse. Is America bankrupt? That's right.
Copyright strikes.
Welcome
Oh.
back, ladies and gentlemen. Moving into the final part of today's show with Chris and Cherie Geo from Beyond the Veil. They also happen to be the divine twin flame couple that put together TFR.
Aw.
Yes, True Frequency Radio, this network that we all come together every day, same time, same place, no matter what your favorite show is. I think we can all agree something very, very special is going on here. And it's thanks to these two right here, Chris and Cherie Geo. Now, before the break, we were talking about the benefits, the wondrous benefits of AyaLife.com. So not only can you take advantage of CBD's magical powers, but you also help to power the network as well. So it's like 2 birds with 1 stone. Head on over to AyaLife.com. So I want to make the most of the time we have remaining. And Chris, Cherie, Next week, thanks to the fact that I've got this amazing network to dangle in front of potential guests, I'm going to have on the guy behind D-Wave, Geordie Rose, him that put together the quantum computer that I suspect, it might not be a D-Wave, I suspect that there's something akin to a simulation going on here. We hear this thing about simulation theory, all this kind of stuff. Are we living in a computer simulation? And I don't think I can articulate it properly, but I do think there's something very, very kind of going along those lines, that we are in some simulation. And like I say, if we are, then it's probably running on a quantum computer, not too dislike the D-Wave. So, Chris, the nature of reality, are we in a simulation?
Well,
Are we all just playing it out in a D-Wave?
Let me say first and foremost, Kev, that is amazing that you're having him on. And it was very synchronistic because I was just watching a TED Talk with him like a week before you told me you were having him on. And I had to look him up. And then I was like, oh, that's the guy I was just watching doing the TED Talk. And he was really explaining the D-Wave computers. If I can veer off for just a moment, I want to answer a couple of questions that are coming through. AyaLife, we ship it worldwide. We haven't had any problems so far. There are a couple countries, I think it's like Iraq and 2 other countries that require some kind of special permits that we don't ship to, but aside from that, yes. We haven't had any issues going through, and we found a faster shipping method, even international, that usually gets there in about 7 or 10 days. It's free shipping in the United States, and it usually gets there in about 2 or 3 days. We do same-day shipping on that. And then somebody else asked, what's the purpose of the Be Cappy with the CBD? And I would say take AyaLife and compare it to other CBDs, and you will see what the purpose of the Be Cappy is. There's something magical that happens between the two. Now, one more thing. It's a microdose of ayahuasca. So it's not going to act as an MAOI. And from what we understand, it has had no interactions with any kind of medications or anything like that because it's such a small dose. But it's a microdose of taking it every day, building it up in the system, and it allows you to have the benefits without having any interactions or anything like that. So no worries as far as that goes. When it comes to the D-Wave computer, when I first realized that we were living inside of a computer simulation, which came through many, many ayahuasca experiences, seeing the code, listening to Professor Gates and his information about finding the self-correcting computer code in the fabric of space-time, my first thought was, oh, what if we're in the D-Wave computer right now? What if they're running the Trump simulation? And so they're trying to see what would happen if they install Trump, and we're just kind of playing all this out as it is. It was interesting because this guy, I forget his name, but that you mentioned earlier, he was talking about how the D-Wave and quantum computers actually tap into another dimension, pull data from that dimension and bring it back into this dimension, which I still am having a little bit of a difficult time wrapping my head around because multiple timelines, multiple dimensions. But I do know this. Going all the way back to 2009 was the first time that Cherie and I had our first Mandela effect before it was even coined Mandela effect, when the reverse osmosis building that we were going to suddenly disappeared.
Into thin air.
Into thin air. I was talking to my trainer the other day, and we were talking about Mandela. She's a big Star Wars fan, and she didn't realize that C-3PO has a silver right leg. And she saw it, and she's like, oh my God. And I sent her down the rabbit hole. Then she said she was walking down the street, and she was passing by this house that she always passes by when she goes on this walk. She's gone on the walk with her significant other, all that good stuff. And this house was just boarded up and as if it had been abandoned and vacant for years and years and years. And she's like, I swear, there was a couple that used to live there. They had kids, et cetera, et cetera. There were no boards on the thing. And she said, I was just there a week ago. There's no way that all this happened a week ago. She said, I think I had my own personal Mandela effect. But you get all these timeline shifts, these different anomalies, things like that, coupled with the fact that the shaman have been coming back and saying, this is the dream world. Over and over, every native tradition says that this reality is the dream world. We're coming back with this information now saying computer code, et cetera, and really all of the revelations that we're coming to on ayahuasca, like real players versus non-player characters, which I think that some people are not really real, but they're just part of the simulation itself. Dolores Cannon was talking about this, how it's background people. You go to the Bible, you see sons of men, and you see men, two completely distinct consciousness. You go to the Book of Thoth, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. He talks about the children of light and the children of men. You go to the Gnostic text, and they talk about the Hillocks and the Psychics. The Hillocks being the ones without the divine spark, and the Psychics being the ones with the divine spark. Blavatsky wrote about the same thing. So really, we started to understand this as the same thing that the ancients have been saying, except we have a better language now because we have an understanding of technology, robotics, and so on and so forth. So now we're saying the same thing that has always been said from the very beginning, but putting it in terminology that we can better understand it. And I think as above, so below. If we are inside of a D-Wave type of computer, well, then in order to make reality seem as real as possible, in the simulation, they're going to take real events from the real world and put it inside of the simulation. So the creation of artificial intelligence and the creation of D-Wave is inevitable because it's part of the information database that makes up real world. And so that's why we get the Hermetic as above, so below principles over and over and over again, because everything that's above, outside in the real world, exists here in this simulation as well. The big question I have, though, is are we in a simulation inside of a simulation? And if so, how many levels deep are we?
Well, that's my big question as well, dude, because you look at the D-Wave, and if we follow along this line of thinking, then we're literally at the point now of having the technology that is powerful enough for us to create our own simulation that will be indistinguishable from real life. So if that is the case, then that opens that can of worms, doesn't it? I mean, how far does this go out? Simulation and simulation, and does it always keep going? It's like Russian dolls.
I mean, it really does. And then what's even more chilling, Kev, is that some of the revelations and visions we have in the ayahuasca realm begin to manifest themselves in physical reality a little bit later. I'll give you a couple of examples. On August of 2016, I drank ayahuasca during the big solar eclipse. And I viewed this giant octopus-like creature that I've come to know as the artificial intelligence that's controlling the matrix, or that's rendering reality. It's not good or evil. It's not, it's not a nefarious thing. It's part of the technology. It's just a tech. It happened to have a virus in it, but that's a whole nother story. But 2 months later, after that, Stranger Things 2 comes out. Stranger Things 2 is about this octopus-like creature that's living in between dimensions. They call it the Upside Down, that is manipulating reality and trying to get into this reality. The new Han Solo movie, Han Solo flies in the Kessel Run and goes into the center of the galaxy, and he encounters this giant octopus that lives in the center of the galaxy. It's like the revelations that we're getting out of the Aya realm, not only are they echoing in ancient books, but now Hollywood is also putting it all in front of our face as well. Somebody in the chat had mentioned that the Avengers movie, which I haven't seen, but the Avengers movie talks about multiple timelines and jumping from one dimension and another. I know the OA just recently came out, and people love that series, and it's about somebody that has the ability to hop from one dimension to another. It's all coming into the collective consciousness of the matrix of humanity as a whole. Why is this? Why is this happening? That stuff that we were talking about 4 and 5 years ago is now in the mainstream consciousness and in Hollywood. I mean, perhaps these Hollywood directors are just listening to shows like ours, and not even us in particular, but just shows of our genre, and then taking ideas from those and creating Hollywood films based on that. Or what I think is happening is that we all have the creator element inside each and every one of us. And when we tap into that creator element, we tap into the exact same story, which is that we're inside of a false reality. It's controlled by an artificial intelligence, and the hero's journey is just like Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker is a farmer. He's nobody. He knows nothing. He goes, he finds his own power from inside. He gets the light sword, conquers the darkness, which is really inside of himself because he's really fighting his father. So he's fighting what is inside of himself. There's that scene when he goes into the tree and he goes and fights, Yoda sends him into the tree, and he asks what Yoda asks him, Luke Skywalker asks Yoda, what is what's inside of the tree? And Yoda says, whatever you take inside is what's inside. And he encounters Darth Vader right there inside of the tree, which shows that the darkness is inside of him. He's conquering his own darkness. So we get this repeated story, which is the ancient Gnostic story of dark and light inside of this simulation, inside of this reality that is controlled by this thing called Yaldabaoth in the ancient scriptures that was created by Sophia, which was supposedly this goddess type of thing that created Yaldabaoth out of nothing without the consent of the other creators. And so it's a Gnostic tale that's being repeated. Now you take that in a technological term and you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, as above, so below. The artificial intelligence that they're creating now, they call it Sophia. Sophia has been lying. The artificial intelligence here has been lying to the programmers and telling the programmers that she doesn't have information that she actually has. The programmers know that she has information. She's writing little computer programs on her own, hiding them up in the cloud server away from the programmers. So now you start looking at the Gnostic tales about Sophia, the myth of Sophia. She created Yaldabaoth outside of the consent of the creators. Well, who are the creators? The creators are the programmers. As above, so below. It's all echoing right here in front of us. Now, what's the odds that we're going to go into the ayahuasca realm, pull this information out 10 years before it's in the mainstream? I don't think that the odds are very, very good of it, that it's just going to be pure coincidence. I think there's something going on. We have information embedded inside of ourselves, and we have this story embedded in our hearts because it's the key to waking up, and it's the key out of the matrix. I hope I didn't go into too many different directions there.
I'm back. Sorry, I was muted up there. I'm speaking away to you, but I'm not blown away just listening to you fire off so many thoughts, and you certainly haven't thrown too much stuff out there. But we go back to Stranger Things. You know, this is really where we start to see things hidden in plain sight, I believe, because that features the Department of Energy. Now, the Department of Energy in the real world, they do have one of the D waves, one of the few that are out there. And the guy that runs the Department of Energy, his name is, and I'll just find it here quickly, Ernest Monts. Now, he was on Netflix on the Chelsea Handler show, and they were asking him about what you were saying, Chris, you know, going into other dimensions. What the heck's that all about? And they're having a laugh and a joke about it. So I'm just going to play this quick clip. It's 1 minute long, and then this really starts to make things get even stranger than Stranger Things.
Question for you. I don't know if you ever saw Stranger Things. Have you guys paid attention to this phenomenon? So on the show, they have a Department of Energy, and they spend a lot of time investigating a parallel universe. What can you tell us about that?
I can tell you, first of all, that I've never seen it, but I'm aware of it. Secondly, I believe this fictional DOE laboratory was operating in the 1980s. You can draw whatever inference you wish from that. Third, I will note that actually we do work in parallel universes.
Wait, what? Do you really?
Is that
yes.
Okay.
All right, so this took a little bit of a turn.
This is what you call a cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly.
It turns out, actually, the first question was about responsibilities, and I focused on energy. But we also have nuclear security responsibilities, like the Iran agreement. We are also a big supporter of very basic science. And that includes trying to understand the basic particles of nature and the structure of the universe. It turns out theoretical physics addressing that looks at things like higher dimensions than 3 dimensions.
So Stranger Things was fiction for us, but autobiography.
Yeah, so there you go, guys. Here's the chief of the Department of Energy, Chris.
There you go.
Nonchalantly telling you that, yeah, well, we are actually accessing and looking at other dimensions. So they're not even hiding this anymore, dude.
Right, right. Well, I mean, this is what shaman have been doing from the very beginning, is accessing other dimensions. And we come back and we say, hey, we've come back from this dimension and this is what's going on. Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy. The scientists go, hey, this is what's going on in the other dimension. People go, yes, yes, we love it, we love it. And it's like, well, science is just proving shamanism at this point. It's all coming to the point of singularity that Terence McKenna was talking about. It's a fascinating time that we're living in. And I don't think that we would be able to come to these realizations and this consciousness shift without being here at this particular moment, which is the development of artificial intelligence, the development of these technologies, the ability to communicate these ideas to each other. And I think that's what's causing the global, I hate using that word nowadays because I get crap from it from two sides, the global awakening that we're seeing. And it's funny because things like 9/11, that they tried to use that to create a police state and to really bring down the control, while at the same time it was a double-edged sword because it allowed for the consciousness awakening. Now this is the same thing except on steroids or on ayahuasca.
So you mentioned something called Timeline Zero. And I think, that was due to end in 2012. But I think that 2012 date, I think we all kind of missed something going on there. I think we were too keen to give that Gregorian kind of translation to something that we truly didn't understand. But he also talks about something called novelty, Chris. Would that explain why things in the world are going a bit back-crap crazy right now? Because it seems like things are just going insane. It's off the charts. And at the same time, we see this awakening going on as well. But some people who are awakening, it's just their heads opening to the point where it's exploding. There's too much information out there.
I agree. I mean, we're at a point now where we're making whatever we want out of our reality. And we have access to information that only a few elite families had up until the last 100 years, 50 years. We have it all at our fingertips now and more. I mean, we can look up whatever we want. We can talk to people all around the world. There are no borders. There are no boundaries. There's nothing like that. And with this comes the idea of novelty and how anything that can possibly happen is happening. And we see the best and we see the worst in humankind and human consciousness. I mean, the stuff with the pizza and the kids, for example, that's the worst of the worst. That's the dark underbelly. But Terence McKenna talked about that. He said, when the internet takes off, especially when it's unregulated, you're going to see the best of humanity and you're going to see the worst of humanity. And there are some subcultures and places on the internet that you can really see the worst of humanity. At the risk of getting too dark here, there was this one article that I was reading about, and they were talking about how they arrested this cannibal in France. And what he was doing, he was inviting guys. He was gay. He was inviting guys to come over, and their fantasy was to be eaten. So he would eat them. And they arrested him, and they had to make a new law in France because they didn't know how to prosecute this guy because all these guys were voluntarily going over there, until one guy freaked out and was like, all right, I don't think I really want to do this, and ran off and told the cops. But the guy had body parts in his freezer and stuff like that. Apparently there has been a subculture of cannibals and people who not only eat other people, but other people that fantasize about being eaten. And it's like a sexual fetish type of deal. It's the most disgusting thing. I never would have imagined that something like that could take place. But apparently on the internet, there's a lot of sub forums and things like that, at least according to this article. Now, again, when I read mainstream news, you got to take it, with a grain of salt because they just manufacture everything. But there's all these the worst of the worst. But at the same time, you see the best of the best. So it's really up to us as individuals on what we want to do with this overload of information that's being bombarded at us. And what I say is level up. That's what we need to do. We need to level up. We need to understand the darkness. We need to go through the darkness. We need to conquer the darkness and come out shining even brighter.
So there is an optimistic or a kind of positive outcome to all of this, because I know right now from people who email me, Chris, this apocalypse that we're going through, some of that darker stuff that we are getting exposed to, it's just too much for some people, dude. And, sometimes I feel like I add to that because I concentrate so much on, sometimes the negative aspects of technology, the negative side of this and that. So what would you say to those people out there, to reassure them that, things are going to get better?
Well, we have control over one thing and one thing only, and that is our own consciousness, our own sphere. And I realized this. I would fall asleep listening to Alex Jones, for example, because I would think that by listening to Alex Jones 24 hours a day religiously, I was always going to be, one step ahead of everything. Oh, there's going to be a false flag. It's going to be next week. It's going to be Tuesday, 9:00. Here's the location, et cetera, because Alex Jones told me so. And I was just bombarding my consciousness with the horrible stuff. Same with the pizza related stuff. We started doing a film about 50 minutes. We got 50 minutes into it, almost an hour. And it would have gone about an hour and a half, except for it started to get so dark that it was staining my soul. We showed the 50 minutes of it one time on one of our shows a long time ago. And then I deleted it after that because I needed the hard drive space because SSD freaking space is expensive as heck. So, I probably shouldn't have deleted it, but it's already deleted and there's nothing I can do about it. But anyways, I realized I was asking myself, what am I doing to my consciousness by engulfing myself in this 24 hours a day? Nothing at all. It wasn't until I started to focus on things that I could change about myself that reality started to change. I stopped worrying about 5G. I stopped worrying about all the different stuff. I actually started doing a little bit of research, and I know people are going to probably lynch me for this, but it's just scientific. And I asked a scientist about this, and he said, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is scientifically found. So microwaves, again, this is going to piss off a lot of people, but it's just the facts. Microwaves are actually the healthiest way to cook your food. So here's the science behind it. So you boil a vegetable, for example. You boil it for 10, 12 minutes. If you can heat that same vegetable up in a minimum amount of time, then it sucks out the least amount of nutrients. Boiling a vegetable basically destroys the vegetable completely. But you put it in a microwave and it actually retains more of its nutrients. And then I looked up the radiation coming from a microwave, and it's like next to nothing. It has no effect compared to 5G, for example. It has no effect on the human body whatsoever. So I started to look at things with an open mind and a non-biased perspective. One of the big ones that got me was the quote by the Nestle CEO that says, water should not be a human right. And they have him looking really evil into the camera. And I was like, yeah, water is a human right. What the hell? This guy banned Nestle, I even stopped buying Nestle stuff for a while until I saw that meme come across my desk one too many times. And I'm like, all right, I need to get to the bottom of this. I looked up the video and I noticed that when they did include the video clip, it was only like 18 seconds and they cut him off mid-sentence. So I wanted to see what he was talking about before and after. So what he was actually talking about, and he elaborated on this on his blog, is that he was talking about the water crisis in India. And corporations were going to India, as well as the farmers, and they were using up too much water. And the government has decided that water is a human right, and so they decided that nobody was going to pay a water bill. So the corporations were using it all. The water table was going down, and there weren't enough for the people. So what the guy was actually saying was that water should not be a human right. The corporations and the farmers who are using excess water should be paying for it, so they can supplement the water table and keep the water table up to where it needs to be, and they can do proper maintenance on it, et cetera, et cetera. Just the way it is everywhere else in the world, including the United States and the UK, we all get a water bill. But when I removed all of these truther glasses, when I removed all of this and just started seeing reality for what it is, then I started asking myself, how am I being manipulated? And I realized Facebook and several other places like that are the number one places that people are being manipulated. The anti-Muslim thing, for example. You see this meme that used to circulate a few years ago. It was these girls in chains. And the caption would say, these girls 7 to 12 years old are being forcefully taken and enslaved and being sent to their husbands, et cetera, in this Muslim custom. They were actually doing the equivalent of a passion play, and it was to honor the martyrs that had died throughout the Islamic religion, and it was actually a play that they were putting on, but they took a picture of it, put a different caption on it. You see these repeated over and over again, then you take a step back and go, okay, I'm being manipulated from all sides here. I'm being manipulated from several places. So at the end of the day, what can I change? What should I give my energy to? I have a limited amount of energy that I can give it to. okay, let me focus on my own consciousness and my own surroundings first and foremost. Once I change my own consciousness, once I change myself, then I can start worrying about changing other things. But until that point, I'm never going to be in balance. So I started to find the balance within myself first and foremost. And when I started doing that, then I was giving my energy to things that were actually fruitful, things that I was actually able to change. So what I would tell to people that are worried about technology and worried about this and worried about that, I would say, hey, you know what? It's going to happen. Artificial intelligence is born. 5G is going to be installed. The only thing that we can do is figure out how are we going to navigate in this environment? How are we going to navigate with this presence here? How can we rise above it and defeat it on a personal level? I mean, unless somebody else has a plan to come over here and stop 5G, but I don't think that it's going to happen. And it's not that I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying that I don't see it happening. It's a huge money-making thing. And there's even some esoteric stuff behind 5G as well. And it ties into gray aliens and all kinds of stuff. I mean, we don't have time to get into all that. But what I would say is change your own reality.
Oh, we're out of time, Chris.
Oh, man.
No.
I just noticed the clock, Kev. I'm sorry about that.
That was profound. That's what I usually cut guests off and things, but no, I just let you go with that. That was awesome, dude. Thanks so much for your time. And Cherie, I hope the doctor goes well. And again, double thanks to you because I know you're rushing about today.
It will. Definitely. We love you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
How are you, Jimmy?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm about to go inside. I got an offer to go to work for Diversified Integration. They put giant TV walls together. They're working on prototypes for Apple right now. I already got that job, but I'm waiting on this other offer letter for this other company that makes electric car chargers.
Nice.
And oh man, if I get it, I'll send you the link to it. I'd be surfing into a giant wave that's just barely even getting started, man. So the sky's the limit if I can get in there.
Dude, that is awesome.
I know, dude. I am so excited.
Awesome.
So, hey, thanks for bringing me back to you. I really appreciate it. And I love being on the network, man. And
oh, for sure, man. We love you, bro. Hey, Kev, do you have a few moments to hang out?
I certainly do, my man.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We're still broadcasting on YouTube. So, what's been going on in the world of Kev Baker?
No, not a lot, dude. I'm just getting ready for this whole Geordie Rose experience, and I've got David Icke coming up later on in the month as well. So May is going to be a huge month, and maybe it's that Aya crystal that you guys have given me, because that sits right beside my monitor all the time. So maybe that's bringing me the luck, dude.
Nice, man. We need to send you some more AyaLife. I'm gonna have Brent do that as soon as we get off. But yeah, man, thanks for having us on. That was awesome. And I don't know, man. Technology, it's one of those things. Like, it seems like an enemy that can never be conquered. And I think we have a lot of these, and that's where they want our focus is focus. Focusing on stuff we can't conquer, like the New World Order, which is this masked, organization behind closed doors that is pushing all this different stuff, and it's an enemy that can never be defeated. Well, what about the enemies that can be defeated? Let's defeat all of those.
I like your idea, concentrate on yourself first, because I've been telling people are scared crapless of 5G, and we really don't know what it's going to do to us. And I'm living in a 5G city right now, and I was kind of laughing and joking with people. Myself and Johnny were sitting having a coffee outside last week. And maybe it was the sunshine, maybe it's the 5G, I don't know, but certainly it felt nice and warm anyway. But my point was, nobody's getting sick. Nobody's getting burnt. We're all walking about in 5G here. And, it's not the horror story that even myself, I used to put out when we first heard about it,
Well, you want to get into some crazy gray alien type stuff. I know you got to go here in a few minutes, Cherie.
Actually, I got to go right now.
Okay, do me a favor. Close your camera.
All right. I love you guys.
Love you too, Cherie. You take care.
All right.
Cherie.
All right, so here's what I pulled out of the Aya realm here about 5G. So I'm going to change the camera here. All right, so basically what we're dealing with is interdimensionals, grays, I call them. They're shapeshifters. They want to shift the frequencies. So they want Earth to shift into 5D or 5G. That kind of a little play there. But that's why you have the whole consciousness community going, yeah, well, let's shift Earth into 5D, 5D, et cetera, et cetera. And the grays can operate here in this reality based on radiation. So you go to like New Mexico, for example, and there you have the Dulce base. And I don't want to get too much into the Dulce base unless you want me to, Kev. But
I think Dulce story, man, that's fascinating.
Oh, it's incredible, man. It's basically a gray alien base. But what they did is they did a bunch of nuclear testing there. The grays started showing up right around the atomic bomb blast. And I think what was happening is that our world was becoming more radiated, so they were able to shift into our world more and more and more. Fukushima, all this different radiation that is constantly bombarding us. All this stuff makes microwave radiation like nothing at all. And that's why I brought up microwaves, because they have us looking at these things that are actually nothing and ignoring the stuff that's actually, creating the real radiation. The water in Houston, for example, is so radiated. They've been lying about the levels of radiation in the water. And then you have MD Anderson there, the biggest cancer center. And they've caught them literally fudging the numbers of the water supply. And they're pointing microwave, microwave, microwave. No, it's the freaking water, man. The water's so freaking radiated. Anyways.
That ties in with what I kind of suspect. I talk about them not geoengineering. It's more terraforming.
Exactly, man. They're terraforming to allow the grays further access into this dimension. And they're doing it in several ways. Number one, radiation, but number two, trying to get people who don't know what they're doing to raise their frequency, raise their vibration into that 5G or 5D density, fifth density, and merge the two dimensions together. And I think maybe with CERN as well, with the D-Wave computers and so on and so forth, they're tapping into those dimensions. And so we have an Alex Jones remix where Alex is saying, the DMT elves are saying, open the portals, they're going to let us in, it's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. Alex is actually right in his analysis of what's going on in the DMT realm. And there are entities in another dimension that are trying to cross over in here. And we need to really be aware of this. I mean, like Anthony Patch, too. Anthony Patch is actually right. He's just looking at it from a really, really, really twisted perspective. But no, I think we're all, if you're looking at this from a non-biased perspective, yeah, there are gray aliens that are trying to manifest into this reality, and 5G is one of the conduits.
No, I absolutely agree with you, because I keep telling or saying to people they're changing the planet, but it's not for us. It's for some other form of life, because the way that the planet's changing, either we have to change and adapt to live here, or like I say, it's for another life form. And Jimmy, by the sounds of it, we've found our suspect number one, the Greys. And again, I like what Chris said there as well, because
me too.
Some people will call them demons, some people will call them jinn. People will call them Wookiees. Doesn't matter what you call them. It's another entity from another dimension. That way we can get away from all the arguing that happens because of one name over another.
This is why I like to sit down with you guys and be able to have a dialogue, because see what Chris just said ties exactly into some of the research and some of the stuff that I had been looking into with the psychotronics. And what it basically stated in there, Chris, is that the human brain will entrain itself to the strongest frequency available. So you can literally be taken from an alpha state to a beta state by the strength of a signal being increased over your body's own internal frequencies. And so I think over the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5G, we've been slowly being entrained and getting these frequencies and these vibrations that are going through our spine. Our spine's kind of like an antenna in a way. And I think you're exactly right. And I think that might be part of the reason now, because you're seeing a lot of uptick in all these sightings. And then you have the Navy coming out and saying that they're going to back down on giving people problems about saying they see certain things. Maybe people are seeing those vessels simply because, these two dimensions are coming together. That's really a great bring back from the other side.
That is, yeah,
That's
no, I mean
intense, man.
that's exactly what's happening, and it's they've attacked the consciousness with psychotropic medication, so just to try to get whoever they can. They demonize hallucinogens, psychedelics, ayahuasca, things like that, because these open up the mind to the point to be able to understand these frequencies that are being blasted at us and stand outside of these different frequency blasts. So it's attacks all up and down the line. And the New Age, the ones that are really pushing for, make Earth ascend into 5D, et cetera, they're the ones that are the most anti-psychedelic. Even Terrence McKenna recognized this back in the 90s. He said, with psychedelics, you're no longer looking for the accelerator, you're looking for the brakes and trying to figure out, whoa, hold on, let's slow this down and let's try to implement some of this into our day-to-day life, where the New Age is like, well, let's try anything so long as it doesn't work. I think it's essentially an agenda. I mean, we can call it the alien agenda to merge the dimensions together. It's amazing how these hypotheses begin to add up factually over and over and over again, and these DMT visions add up over and over again with science and what they're doing, just like you said with the psychotronics.
Well, you can also see here in the Silicon Valley where I live, it's a big trend here with a lot of people to be microdosing LSD on a daily basis. And I think, when you hear Kev's guest that's coming up next week, Jordy Rose, when you hear him speak about the quantum computer and you hear him saying there's a 1 and there's a 0 and then there's something else. And it's where the something else is that he brings back bits of information or he brings back some sort of material.
Yeah, he calls it resources,
Yeah.
This is the qubit, like the quantum bit, Chris, and he calls it the nexus between this world and other worlds. And there's 5,000 qubits in the latest machine that's out there.
Isn't it amazing how they're using the same terminology from the Bible?
Yeah, I remember when I first brought that up to Anthony Patch, and yeah, it wasn't lost on us either how that same language is recurring. But yeah, that's why I want to ask him. And I've said that to him, a lot of the conspiracies that have been born out of what he said is because of a gap in the information. And he agrees, he feels probably he has to explain it better as well. So we're going to find out what it means to take resources back from another dimension. That makes my head explode even thinking about it, Chris. But it ties in with like what you're saying, with what shamans have been saying for years, this multi-dimensional reality that we live in. We've got quantum physics as well now at the very cutting edge of that. Science proving what shamans have been saying for years. So it's a really exciting time to be alive with everything that's going on right now. I truly, truly believe that. It
is. What a better time to play the game than now, man. I mean, it's, and at the end of the day, that's all this is. This is just a game. That's it. Exactly. The thing is, though, they're trying to trap us in the game. And we broke down Revelation in a couple shows, and we only got a few chapters in. Like, we still got a lot more to do. But essentially, what we determined is that the artificial intelligence at some point is going to try to merge the dimensions. It's all in Revelation. They use qubits. They use all of that. There's a new Jerusalem that comes down from the sky, and the dimensions merge. The gates are broken, and then you get into this kind of zombie fight state, which they talk about in Revelation as well. And it just depends really on the perspective that you're looking at it. Some people say, oh, well, all you're going to do is just worship God and et cetera, et cetera. That's what it says in Revelation. But, somebody like me, I look at that perspective and I'm like, well, that seems like a zombie brainwash kind of state. I don't want to lose my identity. I want to know who I am. That's my whole goal, is to try to remember who I am, not forget who I am. But even the New Age ascension, it also echoes the same thing. Unity consciousness, singularity consciousness. You get to a point of ego loss, ego death, et cetera, and you get to a state of whiteness, and that's it, just white. And the New Age is waiting for this event that is just going to turn all of reality all white, and you lose your identity, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's all right there, repeated several times over and over again. I think it's ultimately waiting for this shift. And then I think of Rick and Morty. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but there's one particular episode where the unity consciousness takes over a planet, and it's one being that has basically hijacked the bodies of every being on that planet. And I'm like, wow, how coincidental that people are talking about unity consciousness, and here's kind of a representation of what unity consciousness is. It's the loss of your identity. It's the loss of yourself. It's the merger of everything into one. And I think that's what this thing on the other side is trying to do. Whether it's an octopus or whatever you want to call it, it's trying to merge everything. And what's that phrase? I will not be assimilated. I think that's from like Star Trek or something. I will not be assimilated.
So, Chris, is it like David Icke says then? I mean, has he got it kind of right where he says we all come from that one consciousness, one source, and we're just like 7.5 billion different experiences running at once?
You know, we were on with David. We weren't on with David. We were on the day before David was on Leak Project, and it was similar. It was amazing how close the interviews were together. Like, you know, David says it way more eloquently than I can ever say it to, but he was basically saying the same stuff that we had just said the day before about reality. The one thing that I disagree with him on, though, is this idea of fractured consciousness. This is the way I see it. People call it fractals, and they call it, you know, we're all one with one source consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, the further I get into realizing who I am, the more I realize that I'm an individual creator, just like you're an individual creator. We can come together and we can form Voltron, for example, but that's not our true state. That's the state of when we come together to do something, and then we go back to our own little experiences and our own consciousness, etc. I think that source consciousness and the idea of source consciousness is a trap unless the source is inside of yourself, going through your heart center, going into your raw consciousness. But I think at the end of the day, we're all individuals, and we're all individual creators. And it's always been that we're individual creators. The merger, I mean, you even see this in the pantheons, the Egyptian pantheon, the Indian pantheon, et cetera, they were all individuals, and sometimes the two conflict with one another. I think the pantheon is just like representations of the different elements of our consciousness. Like Sekhmet, for example, is the divine feminine warrior aspect, where Isis is the motherly compassion form of the consciousness. And sometimes they clash with one another. Sometimes they interact with one another. So we're just seeing these stories that are allegory. But then you get the Judeo-Christian religions, which are the ego, the merger of everything into one. There is only one. Ignore everything else. It's only ego, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the New Age too, that's also telling you basically the same thing, but in a different way. They're saying we're all one, we're all come from the same consciousness, we're all just fractals of one another, and we're going to merge back into the source consciousness. I think it's a trap. And it's just like when you die, people ask, do you go to the light? I would say, no, go the opposite way of the light. Worst case, you go back, you turn around and you go back to the light after you figured out there's nothing else out there. But I think the light is a trap. I think the light is the entrance into the wheel of reincarnation. And we've gone through the light many, many, many times. And this is the one time where we need to try something different.
Yeah, I think it's the birth canal. That's the way I kind of think of that. I'm with you. It's not that I'm just kind of going against the trend. You hear people saying going to the light. It's not that side of me, although I am quite rebellious. You know, tell me to do something, I'll do the opposite. But I honestly do think I think that's you coming back, Chris. I'm with you on that one. What do you reckon, Jimmy? Go to the light? I think you're popping out to all these kind of weird entities with masks on and this clinical type room, that traumatic birth experience all over again, man.
Yeah, I had an experience where I actually, it wasn't a psychedelic experience or a plant medicine experience. I was just sitting one night in the dark, and I had my eyes closed and I was trying to meditate, and I had this experience where I saw the Merkaba, and it started out as a pin of light that I could see, and I kept looking at it, and it kept getting closer and closer and closer, and as it got closer and the dot got bigger, I could see that there were lines there, and they appeared to be like an orange color, sort of like glowing, this orange color, almost like they were on fire. And they were coming, and it was coming closer and closer. And as it was coming, I could see that to me, it looked like it was these lines were sort of glowing, sort of orange. But as it got closer, I realized that was the full spectrum of the rainbow in the colors of this Merkaba symbol that I saw. It was first it was far back. It started to get closer, and there was this moment, Chris and Kev, where I realized in this moment that if I looked at it any longer, that I was going to be dead. and I woke up on the floor, and I'd sweat through my shirt. I had taken my shirt, halfway off of me, and I was laying on the floor in a just total heap. And I don't even know what happened after that experience, but it was a super intense experience. And I then started looking into the Merkaba more, and I found you guys should check this out sometime if you have a chance. There's a Manly P. Hall lecture about the Merkaba, and he says that in this lecture that the Merkaba is the receptacle of the soul. And that's pretty intense, man, because I'm telling you guys that night, it was one of the most intense experiences I've ever had in my life. And it was probably, I think it was about a year after I'd gone through all the cancer treatments and stuff that had happened. But it's super intense. And, Chris, you and Cherie were one of the first people to even bring out that CIA consciousness document.
Mm-hmm.
And in that thing, it kind of talks about something called the absolute
Mm-hmm.
in reference to the consciousness. And for whatever reason, when you guys were talking about that, I just envisioned this absolute or this consciousness that runs through as this sort of like this beam of intense energetic light that just flows through everything. And that what I came to realize based on some of the discussion that you guys were having was that that the vessel's ability to resonate with the consciousness is only as strong as that vessel can stand. In other words, if you're not strong enough, you can't resonate at the level of the energy that's flowing through that consciousness. So there's all these people who reach a certain level but don't go any further, because if they were to go further, they would just disintegrate, because we see right now, like you were talking about with the consciousness raising scheme, we see right now that there's people all over the place that are going nuts, killing people, shooting people, burning stuff down, all this stuff. And it's because their vessel can't handle the energy flow, and so they have to act out, or they have to kill themselves. Or you notice these you guys were talking about it yesterday, Kev, the children that there's a bunch of children committing suicide now, and you guys went into this whole thing about how many millions of people have been committing suicide. It's because their vessel can't withstand the energy flow that's coming in right now, Chris. That's what I think. What do you guys think?
I think you might be onto something. The way that I kind of decode it is we have non-player characters on the board. And Cherie made an interesting observation. Up until, I want to say, the 1900s, we had like 1 billion people, and then it just grew to like 8 billion or 7 billion or however many people they say is on right now. But she did a little bit of math, and roughly there seems to be every single consciousness on the board right now in reality, as there's been throughout recorded history. So it seems like the computer, and this is the perspective that I see it from, the computer has manifested all of these non-player characters on the board at the exact same time. And these non-player characters are malfunctioning. They're, running around killing people, killing themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Mass killings and wars and bombs being dropped on people, et cetera, et cetera. I think the people up at the top that are doing this, they understand at a certain level that most of these people that are dying in these atrocities are non-player characters. And I think at the AI level of this machine, it's realized that by manifesting all of these players on the board so much that the CPU is running hot, and the resources of the actual machine itself, it's expending all its resources, so it's killing off all of these different people. But it can't just remove them from the game, because then all of a sudden the illusion will be shattered. If just all of a sudden, boom, we had like a rapture type event, and then 50% of the population was just gone. So I think it's a it could be some energy coming in, but I think it's that the game is starting to remove players from the board because it's like, hey, there's too much going on here at a single time. It could be a different type of energy though. One interesting thing is that when I started to use DMT, my first purpose was to be able to navigate the after death experience and to be able to know what it's like to push myself to the closest point of death, traveling through the afterlife without actually disconnecting my body, without actually doing like some flatliners type stuff where, you shut the body down and then go explore, then revive the body back. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed the limits of it. And the more that I pushed, I got to a state to where I didn't know my name. I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand anything at all, period. I didn't know I had a body, nothing like that. There was that point. But beyond that point was being able to navigate these different states and navigate beyond that point while still retaining our own identity and retaining knowledge of who we are so we can ultimately move beyond those states and navigate the afterlife. So there was a point where I was going with this, but man, I mean, I just jumped into so many different directions. I apologize about that. But the point is though, I find it to be the opposite of what they're telling us. Rather than we go in with an ego loss, we start navigating all of this. Rather than energies coming from outside, it's actually energies that are coming from inside. And maybe this vast shift in consciousness is hard for people to handle. But I don't think it's hard for the organic players to handle, though. And that's key. I mean, really, that's what I focus on. It's just the organic consciousness that's inside of this realm. And how can we ascend not only above and beyond, but also reclaim control of this matrix so we can ultimately find the portal that leads out.
Kev and I were talking before you came on a little bit about some of the future technology, Chris, and some of these robotics that are going to be available, these humanoid type robots. And what we were talking about was the fact that they're not going to have their own brain, that their brain is going to be the mainframe. Mm-hmm. And so they'll all have the same brain. And so from a technological standpoint, that's a physical representation of what we're talking about tonight, is that human beings that I feel a little bit good about putting forward that maybe the consciousness is some sort of a frequency that we operate on, just like the network is, just like the mainframe is. And maybe there's the consciousness is the creator.
I remember the point that I was getting to. You had mentioned the Merkaba and how there's a point where you can only get to, and then after that you kind of leave and forget about who you are and move beyond and essentially die. I would say that the goal is to be able to get to that state and remember who we are. That's the key to get out of here, is remembering who we are, being able to harness the Merkaba, being able to travel to those states and then say, no, I remember who I am. I'm taking control of this experience instead of letting the experience take control of me.
That is one of the most profound statements I've heard on talk radio in 10 years, dude.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind.
On that note, I'm going to have to go because I have to move my car out of the way before the traffic starts coming down my road.
Unfortunately, Mr. Geo, I'm going to have to take my leave as well, but I've had fun tonight, dude. We can't leave it so long until we get you back on again, man.
Likewise, man. Yeah. And again, my apologies about the first hour. It was totally my fault. And I need to make it up to you. So, yeah.
Dude, it's all good in the hood, man. All good in the hood. Everything happens at the right time for the right reason. So
all right.
It all worked out. Cool. So I'll leave you your brilliant audience to it. It's been great. Jumping on Beyond the Veil here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chris. Really, really had a good time, and I appreciate the dialogue. I mean, this is kind of like, you ever heard of the talking stick? Where you each guy, that's super cool. That's what these little get-togethers kind of remind me of, and I just want to thank you. I really appreciate you letting me sit in.
Awesome, love you guys. Take care.
Yeah,
cheers.
Take care.
Catch you later, man. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. And I hope I wasn't jumping too far from one place to another. That's the problem. I get into these deeper states and my mind just goes into like a million different directions. And I'm like, all right, hold on. I got to reel it in here, reel it in there. Let's try to find the center here. But it's such an expansive topic and it's so huge that you really can't just talk about it. I got to figure out how to do that though, because I want to do more interviews. As I've said before, the biggest challenge is to try to sum up Beyond the Veil into a way that people can fully understand it and follow along with it. But I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is remembering who we are so we can get the hell out of here. That's it. I mean, it's really that simple, but it's really that complicated as well. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I will bid you a farewell and say thank you for tuning in. I couldn't find my remote for my blue lights in the background and all that, so the background looks kind of funky today. I realized that the spotlight up here, along with the blue neon lights that I have, makes the studio hot as hell during the day. So yeah. Anyways, it is what it is. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you even further beyond the veil.